I think being scared makes you feel alive.
Horror games were like a bonding experience for me and my friends.
It makes you live this trauma.
Putting that through the horror lens, dialing it up to 11.
And of course, I always love the viscera.
I think I got killed.
Seeing decapitation, seeing heads exploding.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God.
I literally jumped up out of my seat and like slammed the pause button.
I think horror in video games kind of goes back to like the beginning of video games.
The explosion of the video game craze hit us in 1983.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty rough for back then.
Scariest game in the arcades. It was so good.
Will this popularity last is the question. Well, the makers of video games are gambling that it will.
The label survival horror came in '96.
Resident Evil, Biohazard. Oh, that's a scary game.
But then everyone tried to understand what was the precursor.
Now we were like, we really got to finish this thing. We were scared to death.
サイレントヒルっていう企画ができた時に、このタイトルであれば僕はゲーム音楽っていうのを変える。
The publisher had to pull out of the contract, and we were like, okay, what do we do? What do we do?
It was a deeply emotional thing to write at the time.
You know, it felt like something that was made by people that are hurting.
Because I'm gonna get choked up about this.
This is so much more than I realized it was going to be.
We're into this era of digital storytelling where we have the ability to inject some of that reactivity and that life back into things.
What if we break that rule? What happens if we do that?
Video games are causing violence, and I'm like, oh yeah? I'll show you.
They really like twisted the nipples of horror games.
Okay, we're doing something good there.
Talk about identifying what scares gamers the most.
I'm just like sitting by my friend going,
The emotional plane that you have is a first-person emotional response.
It causes me to feel that thrill or that fear or that light.
It's almost more frightening when you have hope.
これをできるだけ両方味わいたいというか。
Yeah, okay, there's a sweet spot there. Let's push on this one.
I love this. I want to see more of it.
Oh my God, I gotta get out, I gotta stay alive, I gotta get out, I gotta stay alive.
I mean, I think it's pretty simple.
we're gonna scare ourselves to death.
Might as well go big or go home. Just make it ridiculous.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the WASD and Beyond podcast. We are your hosts, Nick and Brody, and with us this week, we got Connor and Richard from the TerrorBytes doc series. Guys, do you guys want to introduce yourselves, let everyone know who you are and what you do on TerrorBytes? Whoever wants to start.
I
was going to say Richard.
Yeah, I'll go first. I've been on the show a few times. You might remember me. I am writer and director of TerrorBytes. And I'm also unofficially the sound guy. I do the sound mixing and mastering as well.
That's it. I am Connor. My name is Connor O'Keen, and I'm the editor on TerrorBytes. And it's been a lot of fun, and I am eternally grateful that Richard is doing the sound mix.
Connor, when did you join the team? Because last time we had Richard and Dan on. So have you been a part of the team since the doc has started, or were you brought on in a later time?
I was brought on in, I think, so it was a kind of serendipitous like sequence of events. I think they just started looking for an editor. I don't know if you'd even put up the ad yet necessarily. And I sent Robin.
Yeah, we put it out because we got some applications.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I sent CreatorVC, the company, an email because I'd previously had an audition edit with them for In Search of Darkness, their kind of flagship 80s horror series. And I'd gotten through to the last round of that kind of process, but didn't get the role in the end. And in those communications, Robin had said, oh, do keep in touch and da 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 da. And you figure that's just something people say. They don't want you to keep in touch, so I didn't. And it got to I think April or so, around this time last year. And I was looking for work as an editor. The places that I had been working at, freelancing at, the work had kind of dried up. And I was starting to look at ads for places, and all of them said, we're looking for someone who lives and breathes social media, and all this jargon that was just making my soul shrivel up and die. And I was talking to my partner at the time, and she said, "Oh, what's a dream job for you in this role, in terms of this work?" And I said, look, the closest thing I ever got to a dream job as an editor was this audition edit I had for CreatorVC. She said, "Oh man, that sounds great. Well, what did they say?" And I said, "Oh, they said to keep in touch." And she's like, "And did you?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "So email them." And I was like, "Okay." So I shot them an email with my latest show reel and just expressing hey, I love what you guys do. If there's any way I can be involved in anything you guys are working on, I'd love to be. And they got back saying, "Hey, if you've got any examples of documentary work, send them our way, and maybe we'll have some we'll see what happens." I sent them some examples, and I ended up getting a call, an interview call with Richard and Daniel to talk about being involved in TerrorBytes on the back of that. And it just that Robin's described it as oh, you fell into our lap. I'm like, dude, you I'm just happy to be here. Yeah, it just worked out really well.
It's wild how just the journeys into anything in life are just so it's not matter of fact. It's not you open one door and it just stays open and you're in there. It's
no, exactly.
You open it, you shut it, you think it's closed, and it's all right, well, I'll go to the next one, I guess. And it's no, hey,
totally.
hey, back over here.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
This has been probably the most the biggest example in my life of having a job that I'm really thrilled to be working on, and kind of it acting as a vantage point for me to look back on the 15 or so years I've been shooting and editing and writing and going oh, it wasn't for nothing. I haven't been wasting my time. It's been very reassuring in that way.
Awesome, man. It's a good team, man. I remember the FPS documentary team, working with them. David is an amazing man. He's one of the dudes who really helped get this podcast a bit more carte blanche. We started talking more people because of David, and it's all because of CreatorVC, and this is a great company, great group of people. Richard, do you want to tell the audience exactly what, just in case they're living under a rock, what TerrorBytes is?
Yeah, okay. So in one sense, TerrorBytes is our follow-up to FPS, which I co-wrote with David Craddock. But it's going off in a different direction. So instead of a 4.5-hour monstrosity, it's 5.5 hours, even longer, but episodic. So yeah, instead of one gigantic thing that you probably have to watch piecemeal, we've already cut it up for you into 5 parts. Each episode is delving into a different theme or topic, and it's all connected to the world of horror in games. And that, of course, means a lot of games that you would call horror games, but also some stuff that maybe isn't traditionally thought of in a horror vein, but it has horror elements, or there are horror moments in there that are really cool. We've got a bit of coverage of the Thief games, which they're immersive sims. They're about sneaking around, but there are these really strong horror undertones, and in some places overtones to the way that game works. The shrill screams, the really famous level in Deadly Shadows, robbing the cradle, where you go into the abandoned mental asylum, and it's super creepy level. It's it had a something like 10-page article written in it in PC Gamer about it years ago. It's like it's one of the most famous levels of all time. So we got stuff like that, and then we've also got coverage of all different kinds of horror games, your Resident Evils and Silent Hills, of course, but then also like Night Trap and Phantasmagoria and Until Dawn and Iron Lung and Faith, like the cool indie stuff. Some more controversial kind of things like Rule of Rose, which was banned in parts of the world, and like just going all different directions according to these episode topics that we got.
With this set of topics, how important was it for the team to be able to get some of these guests that you guys have got on the documentary? Because there's some heavy hitters from some big franchises and some big hitters that worked on smaller things that they're not really like. So for you guys, like, how was it? I remember talking to you guys during FPS Talk about guests. I remember just watching your guys' faces light up. You're like, there's some surprises. Or yeah, we got this person and they talk about stuff you would never have expected. Was it the same sort of feeling, and how important was it to get these people and these guests on this documentary series as well?
I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, we've got 51 people, and most of them are game developers, and so it's amazing to get all these different people from different areas of the horror genre, from the past and the present. Some of these people don't even work in games anymore. Others have been doing it for decades, and some are fairly new, and like they're the next generation coming through. And they're all telling their stories. They're all sharing the trials and tribulations of making games, and getting into what this genre means to them. And what was really cool was that they had that vulnerability. They were willing to tell us what scares them, and like how they often are making horror games based on their own personal fears. It's like, I am afraid of this thing, so to explore this idea, I made a game about it. Or I was working on this game, and I've since been able to process trauma in my own life better for having gone through that as a developer. It's really cool hearing all these different things, but also to the point about how some of these people worked on little stuff and big stuff. Sometimes we decide we want to get someone, and then we're looking at their credits, and they worked on this other cool thing that we could also talk about in here. How awesome is that? Like, I'm trying to think of some good examples. Swery is a nice one where it's he's famous for Deadly Premonition, but he also made this indie game called The Missing J.J. Macfield and the Island of Memories. I think that's the full title, something like that. About it's about ostensibly about a girl who you later find out is, I'll spoil it for you. You find out she's trans, and she is going through this extreme trauma. Basically, her body she keeps dying. You blow off parts of her body as you're playing this game, and so it's like there's this metaphor going on. He was exploring the idea that you need to have the confidence to be the person that you are. Like, you shouldn't be afraid to be who you are. And so this character in this game is continually blowing herself up to advance, and then you press a button and she just forms back together again. It's like your arms and legs come off, and you're just a blob, like going like that along the level to advance past some obstacle. And then you press the button, and suddenly she comes whole again. She builds herself up from nothing, and that's like what you do in life. You go through these trials. It breaks you down. It destroys you. Then you pick yourself up again. You put yourself back together, and you continue on. And he made this really beautiful game that's a metaphor for that. And we wouldn't have talked to him about just that. We only talked to him about that because we had him for Deadly Premonition. And so we get to cover some really interesting things
in the series as well.
Yeah.
Stuff that's really cool.
I loved writing that.
What's that? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I loved writing that bit. That was like, I'm sure we'll get into some of the challenges of making the thing later more, but that was a case where it's like the indie episode. I had about 25 games I wanted to cover, and I'm like, we've got an hour. I can't cover this many games in an hour. What can I do?
It's you though, Richard.
Obviously, I'm
You
gonna have to
try.
just. I'm just gonna have to get rid of some of them, but maybe I can be clever in how I cover some of this stuff. Maybe I can combine things. And so I was looking at it and I was thinking about what people have said, and I'm like, hang on, there's a recurring theme in some of this. People are talking about these ideas of like powerlessness and desolation and what it's like to be a social outcast. This can all go together. And
That's
so we've got
incredibly
this
smart.
segment it's covering 4 games in this sort of sideways way. It's talking about the ideas and the issues involved in the games, and we're just dipping in and talking about that game a bit, pulling it back to the big picture, how this all connects to the idea. And it was one of my favorite segments before I even saw it. Just from writing it, I was, this really works. This is cool.
Yeah, that's all. I think some of my favorite moments in the series, as I've been putting it together, have been the ones where you get a bit of that sense of the old guard, these people who made these games that were, super important to the genre and, were culturally significant, that influenced these newer game devs. And they're talking about how it influenced their careers, and now they're making these, maybe just at this point indie entries, but they're still contributions to the genre and the medium, and it creates this kind of conversation between the old guard and the new, and I really love those moments.
And
myself.
even
like
sometimes the old guard as well. So just to cut in, sometimes the old guard are talking about each other as well. Like Dennis Dyack
totally.
talks a lot about
the
Resident
old
Evil
guard,
and how much he
talking about-
loved it.
Oh man, like Dennis Dyack talking about like Resident Evil and like how he's like, I want to make something like this, and then later in the episode you get the to see what kind of his attempt at contributing to this thing that moved him so greatly was. Like that stuff's really cool. I love all of the stuff that kind of just reinforces the idea of creativity being like a cycle and something that you contribute to, and it's about the next thing, it's about the next one and the next one, and you don't know what the next one's going to be or how it's going to come out, but it's not going to be for nothing,
Yeah,
that stuff really.
For me, man. Oh yeah, go on, Brody. Go on.
You were talking earlier about talking to all these developers and artists. I mean, for all intents and purposes, and how they kind of opened up and had those moments where they explained, hey, I made this game because of this fear, or this is some form of like trauma or whatever it may be. I mean, you talked about specifically Dennis's game, but like, what was another one that really stood out to you as maybe you didn't make the connection playing the game the first time, or maybe it was something that was kind of a little bit more behind the scenes, or maybe not even something that was brought up in the game? Was there anything that really stood out in that fashion, or?
Richard, do you have any off the top of your head? I've got some.
First one that comes to my mind, I knew a little bit of it, but Lone Survivor, there's a depth of emotion that game comes out of. I don't want to spoil the segment too much, but a very personal loss is what is at the core of that, and this need to process the emotions of what happened is what Lone Survivor was all about. That's where it came from, and so we've got quite a touching and pretty short focused segment exploring that with creator Jasper Byrne.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I like there's a bit in the second episode when talking about the Walking Dead games, Mary Kenny talking about her role in writing on the final season, and talking about the dynamic between the two main characters in that season, and she gets quite like emotional talking about it, and then in the 5th episode you get a bit of context as to why that might be. She talks about like how becoming a parent kind of changed, like brought this whole new world of like fear into her life, and that she's been kind of drawing from that when writing for horror games from then. And it's this very like it's not these big like, oh, I'm scared of like vampires and stuff, or like even big like existential like the universe is expanding kind of stuff. It's more just like, what if I'm not enough to this person who needs me? Like that stuff really, rocks my socks.
Right, the kind of thing that you don't think of in the horror sense, right? It's just a whole new fear that gets unlocked when you become a parent, and as you go through life, and
and that's the stuff that as I'm not a parent at this stage of my life, but as I get older, I see more of my own parents' like fears represented in those things. I empathize far more with my parents and people in my life. Like when horror is at its best, you kind of understand a bit more about yourself and your fellow human. And I think I don't know, this doco shines a light on how video games role in the genre. Like I think it hopefully I think it does the genre and the medium justice.
Yeah,
there's nothing more personal than being afraid, right? Like that's like the one thing of art. In art, being afraid and being able to express that has always been important in horror, especially horror video games. That is one of the greatest things an artist can do, is show you how deep that goes, right? Like that's why I've always loved this genre. I've horror movies, always loved horror games. Like it's not just about big fucking bugs. Sorry. Well, drop that F-bomb. Very good, Nick. It's not always. It's not always about
floodgates are open.
No. It's not always about the big scary bugs or like the monster under the bed. It's just about like, what if I'm not enough for this person? Like you brought that up. That's a great fear. I have that fear all the time as a dad. I'm like, what if I'm not? And it's terrifying. So to know that I'm going to hear stories of these artists, not just the artist and developer hand in hand. When I say artist, them talking like, this is why this is the way it is. This is why this was written and why we made the game. Look, like art style, sound design, and story are all in tangent horror. They're all super important. If you have a good story and gore, but then the sound design is clown shoes, you just killed the entire project, right? Especially in a horror, you need that atmosphere. So I'm excited to see how you guys tackle talking about all of that and how you bring it out of these people. That is what I'm excited about. Documentary. I know that's what it's. I know you're gonna go in deep, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. I get emotional during documentaries. Don't let the face tattoos fool you.
There's been moments when like editing this thing that I've been like sobbing while putting this stuff together. Like just because like it's like you say, you kind of you see or you hear a bit of yourself in the stories that these people are telling, like as a be it as a parent or as a son, a fucking partner, or just as an artist, like hearing these people, like hearing Graham Devine talking about The Seventh Guest and like the feeling of like they had this idea, they wanted to see it made, and they got to a point where suddenly all eyes are on them. Like the thing that they've put together has sold Virgin Interactive on making this thing and giving them the money and the resources to make this thing, and they've made a splash at what was it, CES or something like that in like 92. And
CES.
Suddenly they've actually got to like follow through and make this thing a reality, and just being scared to death by that. Like
there's literally a quote from him that's like, I realize now we're going to make this thing, and I was scared to death.
Totally, yeah. I've rewatched that segment multiple times while working on this thing, because while working on this thing, as much as it's been a dream job, it's also brought up so much, like every other week I'm having a bout of like visceral imposter syndrome where I'm like, oh God, it's all going to come crashing down.
You're talking to John Carpenter right now?
Yeah,
How
exactly,
the fuck do I
man.
edit
Like
that?
working with footage of people who like I have idolized since like my first steps into creativity, like that journey, like John Carpenter. I mean, like even I play in a heavy metal band, so like Corey Taylor is a hero of mine. Having him in the doco as well, I'm like, 14-year-old Connor is losing his goddamn mind, dude.
33-year-old Nick is freaking out. I'm not even on the documentary.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I'm saying, man?
It's
that's
like
funny. I went to Knotfest.
it's like that 4
earlier
degrees from
this
Kevin
year.
Bacon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Slipknot, they're up there playing, and I sent a picture to the TerrorBytes Slack channel, being like, "Hey, look, it's Corey Taylor from TerrorBytes."
Oh my! I'm
That's
sure
awesome.
everyone looked at that and went, "All right, Connor, very good. You're at Knotfest, and we're not."
No, Dan was stoked. He was like, "I'm exclusively referring to him as that from now on."
Oh my god, dude! How important was it for you guys to dig deep on that? Because you can make it. People make documentaries all the time. There's tons of documentaries that come out, and there's video game documentaries that come out quite frequently. And more often than not, they're shit. They're not deep enough. They're not deep enough. They don't explore the creativity of the artists. They don't go into what the game is, how it was made, the pitfalls, and everything involved with it. You guys, in FPS Doc, you guys went into the center of the earth, dug up stories that no one heard, and presented it to the world, the entire FPS community. When I'm hearing of this documentary, TerrorBytes, that's exactly what we're getting again. How important was it to do that all over again for this medium? Because you've already, again, with FPS Doc, you gave the FPS community and the shooter community something to watch and learn the history of what they're playing and how important that history is. No different here with TerrorBytes. How important was that for you guys to do?
What do you think, Richard?
I mean, for me, that's the core of what I'm trying to do. I as a writer, as a historian, a journalist, just as a dude, I'm like, I've got to do things. I got to do things all the way. You know, I don't want to just do some surface level thing. That's not me. I'm not just going to give you a nostalgia fest. We're trying to celebrate the genre, so okay, we'll start with nostalgia. Nostalgia is like that's the thing that might hook you on hearing about a game. Like, oh, cool, they're talking about Resident Evil now, and then hopefully you get some huge insight from somebody, or it's like, oh wow, this other guy was really into it, and then you get the whole journey of like finding out that Eternal Darkness is inspired by Resident Evil. That's some really cool stuff. But for me, it's just not worth spending all this time putting the thing together unless we're going to learn something from it. We have to learn something about how video games work, how this genre works, why people like horror, what even is horror is something that we're also exploring here. Like we keep going back to it throughout the 5 episodes. What is horror? People are talking about what it means for something to be horror, and whether there is this idea of a horror game, or is horror just a theme or a vibe? Is it all these things all in one? I want to explore deeper issues. I want to explore ideas. I want to know what drove people to do something, why they did it, how they did it. We don't have the room to go into the level of depth that I'd love to. Like, I would love to do an hour-long documentary about most of these games.
Yeah.
But we can't do that. We got to do more of a sweeping tale through and try and get a lot of the depth coming out of big picture things like ideas. Here's a really deep look at how horror games work in all the different ways that horror can work. You know, there's so much variety, from the really campy, kind of funny stuff that's never scary like Night Trap, to things that are utterly terrifying in either in a foreboding kind of way, like Silent Hill can get so creepy, and then you've got really in your face scares that it's making you jump out of your skin. Like, you know, Outlast does that kind of thing.
I was
Five
just
Nights at
thinking, you
Freddy's
said
is
that.
the whole point of
Outlast.
the game, right? Is that it's just going to scare you. Something's going to pop up and give you a fright. It's a jump scare. So like, we've got people breaking down how to do a good jump scare in there. There's real proper insight here, and that right from the beginning, that was what I wanted. It was it was what I bring. I can tell good stories, I can weave things together well, but what I bring is a determination to give that depth and to pull out real insights from developers as we're talking to them, get them to break down design.
Yeah, I think that's what when you started sending scripts over for the kind of paper edits, and I started putting it together. That's what really excited me about it too. Was just not the fact that it's not just it isn't a nostalgia trip, 100%. It's not, you know, top 100 scariest gaming moments. Like, it's not a
There you
Watch
go.
Mojo video, you know. And like there are so much out there on YouTube in terms of like video essays and stuff, and some of them are really really great and really well researched and stuff, but what they don't have is the people who made these things talking about them, or people who were, you know, seriously influenced by these things talking about them. And so we've got an opportunity here with this documentary, especially at this point in time. I think this is a really cool project that captures a moment in time where video gaming or video games as a medium, as an art form, and as a vehicle for horror storytelling is still in its relative infancy compared to other mediums. But it's been around long enough for there to be a legacy and for there to be like serious, like significant cultural like touchstones within it. And the people who made those games are still around, and like we were lucky enough to get a hold of some of them to tell their side of that story. And so I think this series, it's less going to be, I think it ends up being less of a deep dive on specific titles and more telling the actual story of this thing up to this point in time. Like, we're covering from the very like beginnings of horror video games, or horror as an aspect of video games, to 2025. And I think that's really exciting. Kind of telling, that story overall. And I think across the 5 episodes, you get a really good sense that of just how, like, each episode is, you know, the first episode's focusing kind of largely on survival horror, and I think works really well as the first episode because survival horror is the kind of, I think, the most distinct subgenre within horror that's unique to horror
It's
gaming.
almost synonymous.
Yeah, exactly.
People
exactly.
think
It's
of
like
horror,
the
they
first
think
thing you
survival
think
horror.
about. Exactly. And then each other episode is kind of focused on like a lane within horror gaming, a facet of horror gaming, but they're all kind of interconnected. And by the time you finish all 5 episodes, you get a sense of like, oh my God, there's things that, like, if I just watched episode 5 on its own, I wouldn't have context for why this was significant. But because I watched episode 1 and I got the sense, you know, if I didn't know of Silent Hill before then, I now understand how that had an influence on this thing in episode 5, or this thing in episode 4, the Indies episode, which is like one of my favorites. Yeah, like it's really cool seeing the kind of the tendrils that horror gaming has and how far they reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a couple questions about the setup, the episodic approach you guys took this go around, rather than the long form media
I
of
like
the
4.5 hours.
I
Just watch
agree.
this, just watch it in one go. All 5.5 in one go.
Hold my calls.
Yeah, I'm pretty partial to the episodic personally, just because I don't know when on earth I'd ever find 4.5 hours to sit down and watch it. But did you find this form to be slightly more limiting, or did it allow you to, or is it did it feel constricting, or was it more of a boost to how you thought about how you were going to go into it, like setting up all of these different categories more or less, or what was kind of the approach there versus the more long form? Because I imagine long form is very hard to keep cohesive as well, right? But
yeah. So for me as a storyteller, I find it really helpful, almost freeing, to be episodic instead, because I don't have to try as hard to keep it going the whole way. Like FPS, a real struggle that we had was having a flow that made sense, from talking about like maze at the beginning all the way through to the end, where you're talking about Portal and Half-Life 2, boomer shooters, like that stuff's right there towards the end. Having this entire like string going all the way through that is incredibly hard, and made even harder by the fact that if you recall, we told you that we found out pretty deep into editing that we were actually accidentally making something too long, and we had to pull back and and so the final third of FPS is a bit more compacted than we would have intended it to be. So that made it even harder, and we had to pull out a lot of stuff from the earlier bits also to make it work to hit our runtime. So that was really, really hard to get something cohesive all the way through. And I think made even harder by the fact that David and I were both new to it. We'd written books. We both have multiple books. We've both been writing online for years, but neither of us had made this kind of thing before. We'd never made a documentary film, so we didn't really know what we were doing. We're trying to figure it out as we go. And our editor also, he's an incredible editor, one of the most talented visual people I've ever worked with, Chris Stratton. But he also doesn't have much experience doing long form. So we were a bit lost. And I think if I did it again, I'd probably be able to do it better. But going episodic for this then allowed me to go, okay, I've got a big picture theme or set of themes I want to explore. I'm going to try and weave this through the whole thing, but I don't have to worry about connecting each episode with each other. So I can have each episode be its own story. So episode 1 is just telling this whole journey, the beginning to the present day of survival horror. Let's go on a journey, and we're going to try and get you to understand what the roots of the genre is, and its roots like plural, because there are many foundational games along the way, and really you've even got different eras in survival horror, and we've had to gloss over a little bit some of the more recent stuff, but then at the same time, some people don't even call the more recent stuff survival horror. Like we touch on that as that's a debate in there. Like since Resident Evil 4, is there survival horror or is this action horror? And then the second episode's like licensed games. How has the approach to licensing horror IP changed over the years? The narrative doesn't work as well as I wanted it to, but the theme is clearly there, and we're able to really focus on this idea of just taking IPs from other mediums, from books, from film, from TV, adapting them to video games. What are the challenges? We can just deal with that and not worry about the survival horror stuff anymore. That's set aside. We're just going to reference it when we need to. The third episode, we are able to tell a really, really nice story about the rise and fall, and then kind of rise again of full motion video games. And so that's a very focused story that is its own bubble. It's like it references some other stuff, but for the most part, it was its own world until you get to the present day, when you've got things like Her Story, The Quarry, Until Dawn, Immortality, Bandersnatch. This stuff is like it's pulling more ideas from outside of that 90s peak era. But again, it's a chance to just tell a story, a singular story that pulls into this bigger picture idea of exploring the genre's evolution. Episode 4, similar again. We're able to tell the story of how indies have become so big now. Like to look at the rise of the modern indie scene, and acknowledge that there's indies before that, because there absolutely was. I've written books about the indie scene in the 90s. It's basically shareware. I got a book about shareware. It was just so cool, actually, having John Romero at the beginning of that episode talking about how we were indie doing Wolfenstein and Doom, and we're just like 4 people and we changed the world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as I have a Doom flag hanging up behind me, like that's insane, right?
I have a Caco demon on my knee. It is insane.
Yeah, so it's awesome to have that, and then to have him like make that connection, and then to jump forward to Minecraft. 15 years or so after that, Minecraft becomes this huge phenomenon, and helps to drive this whole indie scene that we have now that's just enormous. And then the whole episode we get to explore the creativity. It's like this unbridled, boundless creativity in the indie scene, and like Connor says, really good episode, works really well. It's fascinating and tightly paced and stuff. And then the 5th episode, controversial games. It's so fun.
I
it's
can't
so
wait
fun talking about.
I imagine that's amazing.
The contrast The contrast
yeah.
between what was being said about these games, like the moral panic around them, and then what is actually happening in the game. Like even Doom, like it got poor id guys got blamed for Columbine.
Yep.
How could a video game that millions of people play suddenly make these kids do that thing? So we've got the chance in episode 5 to reevaluate these games and kind of clear their reputation. It's like, no, this thing doesn't cause violence. No, rule of rose it doesn't have anything that should be controversial in it. What the hell were they talking about? And because we've been talking about all these different themes across the past 4 episodes, we get to round it all up very nicely, and
you almost
it
get
would have
some
been much
closure
harder to
for
do all
certain-
this stuff.
Yeah. I think like each episode functions really well as a self-contained story and a self-contained narrative about an aspect of horror gaming. But then again, as a whole, I think they reinforce one another, and it feels like the sort of thing that, I mean, I as a punter and as a avid consumer of this sort of content, I would get a lot out of repeat viewings of this series. I think, watching the whole thing through and then, giving it some time and then watching the first episode again, I would be, I don't know, more like what's the word? Like each of the personalities in the doc, I would be like
a bit more aware.
I can't think of the right word. There's like a word that's perfect and I can't think of it, but like I would like those people more and I would be like rooting for them, as this story unfolds. And so by the time you get to episode 5 and, in episode 3, we talk about Night Trap just as the game and how it came about and that sort of stuff. And then in the 5th episode, we talk a bit about the controversy around the game and how it affected the people who made it. And so by the time you get there, you've kind of gone on this journey with those people, and then you get the closure of like, oh man, this kind of ruined their lives. Not wholesale, but for like a period of their lives was made very difficult just because, I don't know, some dude wanted to, some career politician was like, video game bad,
Sounds like Jack Thompson. Is he mentioned in this?
I'm not sure Jack Thompson's mentioned. We get the
hate that man.
Senate hearings in '93. Who was that again?
We've got Thompson in there. We've got Lieberman, who was one of the drivers of the political push against games in the '90s. But then also there's a couple of clips of Thompson referenced.
That man, touched on. He is an awful. I said Reagan, by the way. They brought up the '90s. I went, yeah, it's Reagan. I'm gonna get so much black for that.
You probably weren't going to, but now that you've like really zeroed in on it, you might now.
It's stuck in my head. I'm like, Reagan wasn't the president in the '90s. I didn't go to middle school. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You gotta just sweep that under the rug when you fuck it up and let
self-aware.
Nobody catches on to it. Yeah, it's fine.
It's like I throw myself under the bus and then I keep it rolling.
Right,
back it up.
Hold down. Say it with enough
Good bag and bullet,
yeah.
I should have just kept
gaslight your entire audience into believing Reagan was president in the '90s.
It'd be like, yeah,
It'd be like, this was a good episode till he was Reagan. Shit.
Yeah.
I do have a follow-up.
Read a book, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. I do have a follow-up on the episodes, though.
Yeah, go.
When it comes to the episode direction, right? Like choosing the main category for that. I know the last time we had you on, we kind of briefly talked about it. I think you were just starting to kind of publicly announce what you guys were going to be doing in each episode, if I remember correctly. How hard was it to narrow this down? Like you even talked about it at the beginning. There's so many different subgenres or even what people consider to be horror. How hard was it to reduce this down to 5 main categories? Or, I mean, did it come fairly naturally? It was like, yeah, this is obvious survival horror, or I mean, how was that process, and what was it like really? Do you feel like you had to leave anything out that you really would have liked to have covered if you had more episodes to do, or was there anything that was left there? I guess it's kind of twofold. I have so many questions. I could go on forever just about the episodes alone, right?
Yeah, lots of threads to pull out there. So the I'll answer the last part first. Stuff that I would have loved to cover that we weren't able to, just with the format that we had. One that like there's some stuff that was related to some of the themes, but I just wasn't able to figure out a nice organic way to put it in there, or I felt like there wasn't enough room to put it in there. Like, we talked to Dennis Dyack, and before he was famous for Eternal Darkness, he made Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen, or Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain. I always get it mixed up which order that goes in. But the first Legacy of Kain game, which is a really interesting game where you're playing this vampire, Kain, not Raziel like the Soul Reaver games. And you're just flat out going around murdering people and sucking their blood. And it's a really dark game. And it had a lot of literary influences, so I was like, maybe we can squeeze it into this licensed games episode, but it didn't feel right, and I thought I should give this space to something else. We don't have a great deal of useful material from other contributors, so it would just be very Dyack dominated, and he speaks well, but it's not as engaging when you're just hearing one voice all the time. So I thought we'll leave that out. In that same episode, there were a couple of segments that we actually had written, but we had to cut. They didn't quite fit. They didn't feel horror enough once we'd made the segment. Like Chronicles of Riddick. It's an incredible licensed game, and it's got horror elements to it. And we've got a really good quote from Chris Carlton, one of the authors that we interviewed, talking about how Riddick is the horror. It's like this reverse horror thing. You are this powerful dude who is just destroying everyone, and like they're afraid of you. You are the thing that everyone else is scared of, because you are just this badass destroying everything. So even though you're sneaking around in some dark corridors, you then come out and it's, holy shit, the boogie monster has got me. You're the monster stalking them. So that was really cool. But once we started editing it, Connor was like, no, this doesn't seem like it's working, and we were running over time, so we cut it. And there's some other stuff that I couldn't figure out a nice way to put it in. Like, it would have been cool to spend more time talking about I'm blanking on what they're called. RPG Maker type games.
Yeah.
And visual novels. So we got Slay the Princess and Scarlet Hollow in there, and we touched ever so briefly on Doki Doki, but there's no Yume Nikki and some other really interesting games that are totally in the horror space. They just didn't fit nicely with any of these 5 themes that we ended up with. So yeah, there's lots of stuff that would have been cool to cover that didn't fit very well. And as for coming up with that final list of what the 5 episodes would be, it came fairly quickly, I think. Survival horror was like always there. There was even a point where Dan was saying, we could do the whole documentary just on survival horror, and that may have worked really well. There's certainly enough you can talk about to cover 4 hours, 5 hours, totally. Even in an episodic format, I'm sure we could have found a way to do just survival horror. But we thought it was more interesting, and we hoped that it would hit a broader audience to cover all of horror, the whole breadth of horror. And Dan had, I think it was about 12 ideas for episodes that we could do. And since then, between us, we've come up with more ideas. So like, at this point, there's 15 to 20 ideas for episodes we could do. If we ever were able to do more seasons, we could actually go for quite a while talking about different horror things.
That would be great.
But the other 4 episodes was just sort of a bit of discussion between me and Dan, a little bit of input from our boss, Robin Block, thinking about what would be interesting and what would be different, what's underrepresented and under-discussed in this genre, what deserves a bit more attention. Like FMV games, people make jokes about them all the time, but Night Trap's actually really interesting and very well designed. There's a lot of skill and craft that went into making that really hammy, silly, ridiculous game where people fall through the floor.
Yes.
Like just a trap door opens and someone comes out of a cupboard in the wall and it rotates and you go in. You slide down the stairs into a pit. It's like this ridiculous stuff is going on as you're trapping these, it's like 120 or something. It's a ridiculous number of vampires in all dressed in head to toe black that you got to catch in that game. But then you got Phantasmagoria, which is actually quite a serious attempt to explore this idea of scaring a person in a horror game, and people often get stuck on the fact that it looks horrible by today's standards, at least, and it's really clunky mess. But there's some really dark stuff of exploring the relationship between these two people. So FMV games we thought would be really interesting. And what exactly would go in there evolved over time. Licensed games was another one where we thought there's a bad reputation here, but actually some really good games. So let's shine a spotlight on these really good licensed horror games, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the bad ones, and we'll spend a bunch of time talking about why these games tend to be so crap. Why are licensed games usually terrible? And the short answer is it's not the developer's fault. It's
I think
it's usually something external to them.
Yeah, just to reinforce what you're saying there, Richard, I think the licensed game episode, like, kind of establishing at the start, like, okay, licensed games have like always had a bad reputation, and kind of rightfully so. They were always treated as kind of a cash grab. Not much care was put into them. And so and that makes, by the time you get to Alien Isolation, and how great that game is, you've kind of got all the context for why that game. It's not just, oh, that's a good game. That game is a fucking triumph. You know, considering the track record of licensed games up to that point, and the people, like, we've got Andy Bray talking about like at the start of the process of developing that game. One of the lead producers saying, like, oh, you should be able to kill the alien, and them going, you don't get it. Like, if you look at Alien and Aliens, if you get caught by the alien, that's it. Good night, nurse.
Yeah.
Like, and kind of sticking to their guns and making this game, you know, everything that it's cracked up to be. And yeah, all of that stuff with that context of the early iterations of licensed games, and like all of the kind of little, it's about the next one. Like, all of these people have like kicked the can down the road to the point where, you know, Andy could sell a lead producer on this idea of no, we want to make a really good Alien game that captures the way people felt about, you know, watching Alien in 1979. Like, I think, yeah, that's really, really well done in terms of the narrative and all that stuff.
And then on the flip side, you've got like Clive Barker's Jericho is a mess because they ignored what Clive Barker had created, and they just changed it to hit some market trends and go all sexy and like latex leather and stuff.
Remember when that came out and I was like, fuck is this? I was like, what is this? Isn't it?
What happened?
What happened? No, I cannot wait to see the licensed IP episode. Like, for me, I'm excited to see all of this. Because like with, again, FPS, I watched it in one sitting. This, I think the cool thing about the episodic thing is it's psychological. You're going to trick people into watching it all at once. People binge. I would binge an hour-long episode about horror video games, and then each episode is about its own like alley in the genre. And it all threads the needle, and like you guys are saying, like it threads into itself. It's like woven and like, you know, it's like piggybacking. And it's like, hey, remember me? I was from over there. And it's like, holy shit, how did you get over here? And it's like, oh, that makes sense. It's psychological, dude.
Oh,
it's gonna be episode 4, and you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah. If you told me, hey, let's watch a 5-hour movie, I'd be like, I don't know, man. Maybe half of it. We'll finish the other half tomorrow. You tell me, let's watch 5 episodes. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. It's weird, right?
Your brain is like episodes. Yeah, 'cause I can get up, I can go to the bathroom, I can get more food, I can get water, and that's
exactly.
And for again, I loved FPS Doc. I loved it the way it was. I thought it was a triumph in video game documentating. Video game documentarying. Great, very good. Everyone's gonna want to come on the show. I thought it was great for that. I thought it was important, and I think this is important. I really feel like TerrorBytes is the next important docu-series in video games, especially for the horror genre. Horror is a genre, like I said, is very important to me. And I have Ash from the Evil Dead tattooed on my arm. I have Doom tattoos. Out in my living room or my basement, just a wall of DVDs that are half its horror movies. Right, like I live and breathe. I got Fangoria right here. Like I love the genre. Rest in peace, David Lynch. This excites me. Things like this excite me, and know that we're not just getting surface level things. We're getting deep dives. We're getting what you guys want to make and what the creators of these things want to talk about. Not just like, hey, like, why does things scare you? It's not that type of conversation. It's like, what were you feeling when this was? And it's like, that's why we like talking to you guys, because I want to know what you guys were feeling making TerrorBytes. So we're gonna get emotional now. So we're gonna get a little emotional. How did it feel? We're gonna start with Connor though. How did it actually feel for you to start working on a project of this scale and so deep, close to you?
Oh yeah, again, like massive waves of imposter syndrome that have not like let up. I've my threshold for like for stress has risen. I've found new like levels of like, oh, I can do this, and that's been great. But like the horrors persist, dude. But so do I. Like, yeah, it's been wonderful. It has been really wonderful. But it's been like I take this stuff really personally because I love this stuff. I love this genre. I love this kind of series, like these kinds of like documentaries. I mean, I've got In Search of Darkness. They're CreatorVC's flagship, 80s horror doc on my shelf. Since I was 14, I was watching. Did you guys ever watch Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments?
Yeah,
I loved that series as a kid. That was my Bible, and In Search of Darkness is my new Bible. But like, I say that sincerely. Like, I use those documentaries to shore myself up as a an aspiring filmmaker myself. Like, to go like, no, okay, it's not a waste of time. Like, just keep going, sort of thing. So like, getting to work on something like that has been really life affirming and fulfilling in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. And it feels really great to think like, I mean, it's already doing it for me. Like I watch some of these segments back to just go like, okay, no, like you might feel like a fool for trying this thing, but that's part of the journey. That's how you know you're doing the right thing, and the idea that this could live on the shelf of future horror gaming creatives, people who are going to have a punt at doing this thing, or pursuing creativity in any way, like moves me deeply. Like I love this stuff, and to have a role in potentially someone sees this doco and sees Grain Divine talking about The Seventh Guest or Airdorf talking about faith, and goes like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna have a crack. Like that is just the best. That moves me deeply.
Yep. Why we support things like that. Why? Right there, Richard.
Yeah, and this has been incredibly inspiring and moving to work on. In interviews, I could already sense that we were onto something that's pretty special. Just talking to these people and hearing their stories, and drawing out these emotions from them was very powerful. And that there were moments where like Dan was on the call with nearly every interview that we did. Some of them he even conducted. But afterwards, if I'd done one and he was on the call with me, there were times when he'd just sort of turn to me. I mean, I say turn, but like we're on a video call. He'd say, oh man, that was heavy. They really took me somewhere. Like he would be moved just from hearing these stories, and I oftentimes would actually already know the story because I'd do quite extensive research, and I'd know part of the story, and I'd push them to tell the whole thing to get the rest of the detail and to draw out the emotion of the moment. And it's really moving hearing them talk about it. Connor mentioned Graham Devine earlier. He's just so beautiful as a human being. He's amazing, but I'll forever be thankful to him for opening up to me the way he did when I was talking to him. And that was like, we interviewed him during GDC, so he like had gone from these developer talks and networking and whatever to some tiny room that's like across the street from Moscone Center that we'd hired at the last minute because we're like, this will save us some money. We can do 7 interviews this week with people who are at GDC.
Oh, that's so smart.
So this pokey little room, and talk to him for like an hour and a half, and he's like opening himself up, cutting himself open, and crying on the camera, talking about what the 7th guest means to him, talking about how, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but how the sequel to the 7th guest almost destroyed him and the impact it's had on his life since then. It's really beautiful that he went there, and we're talking to Jeremy Blaustein, the Silent Hill 2 translator, and he went even deeper, even darker with something in his personal life that has reframed how he thinks about the game that he worked on. And so I'm so honored and touched that they went to these places. But then I'm also really inspired by some of the stories of the ingenuity and the creativity developers had. And I got into games journalism accidentally while I was trying to get into game development. So I've always dabbled in a bit of game making, and I'm still interested in maybe actually making a proper full-length game rather than just some little prototype demo thing. And it's inspired me to go back and pick up the tools again and go, okay, I've always wanted to make an adventure game. Let's get Adventure Game Studio and learn how to use it. And I'm going to start making some little tiny games, and if I enjoy it, maybe I'll make something bigger and actually release something. So it's really inspirational to play with that. And I've got ideas for horror games working on this thing. So it just suddenly comes to me. But then at the same time, as inspiring and moving and beautiful as it is, hearing all these like really human stories, it's terrifying working on something like this. Like you want to, I want to be true to the stories that we're telling. I want to do right by these people and be a good like shepherd for their stories because they've trusted us with these things. I want to do a good job of sharing them with the world. And I'm writing and directing this, so I'm the dude at the top. I'm responsible for whether this thing is good or bad. Sure, I've got Connor and I've got Dan and got our boss Robin Block telling us, no, you can't put this thing out, this is crap, or whatever. You know, there are checks on it, and I've got collaborators who've been amazing to work with. Like that's another, talking about feeling. So that's working with Dan and Connor has been incredible. We've gelled so well together as a team, and we complement each other so well. But it's really scary working on something like this. Connor talked about imposter syndrome. I can get that sometimes too. Like, what am I doing? I even wrote a feature article for Polygon that won an award about imposter syndrome in game developers, which I thought was a huge irony. Like, I was feeling imposter syndrome, writing an article that talked to developers about their imposter syndrome, and then I got an award. What the hell? How did that happen?
Like, no, don't you get it? I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
This was never the point.
Yeah.
But there's always this feeling of what if this is it? Like, what if this is the last time I get to do this? Because I don't have a day job. This is my job. I make documentaries, I write books, and it's like I'm even though I'm doing nonfiction, I'm cutting myself open every project, pouring myself into it. I'm the kind of person who's all in, or I'm not in at all. And so I'm putting everything of me into something. And then what if that's not enough? What if everything that I can put into this is not enough for it to succeed? What if I'm going to have to give up on the dream? You know, to stop pursuing this thing and stop kind of struggling along, just making enough to keep going, to keep pursuing it, to have just enough income from what I'm doing that I can justify continuing to do it. What if there comes a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. I've got 2 kids now. My wife and I have hopes and plans and dreams, and I'm starting to hold this up because my income is only, it's okay. It's like barely minimum wage equivalent in Australia. Australia has a very high minimum wage, but it's like I'm barely making that. And I'm someone who's got the skills and talents that I could probably be making like $100,000 doing some tech copywriting thing or something, sell my soul to corporate world.
Yeah. Live and breathe social media, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. You
I
know,
hated
how
that.
much longer can I do this?
I hated that.
And every project, it's like there's this fear of what if this is it, or this is the last one, if I'm going to have to give up after this. And I'm always I'm getting new ideas for new things, but I'm like, I don't know how long I can keep doing this. And so it's really scary when we're putting something out. And with this project, we're seeing it getting really good reception, but the sales aren't as good as we're hoping so far. And so it's really scary. It's like, what if sales stay a bit so-so? What if we don't get the hockey stick that we're looking for at the end of this campaign, and we don't get a good result after with whatever comes next, like a flash sale of whatever remaining Blu-ray stock we have? What if we never get a streaming deal? What if this is it? Can I justify the year that I've just spent not doing much work that wasn't TerrorBytes? Can I keep going? That kind of thing. I don't want to be a downer on it, but it's really scary.
I feel
you want us to talk about
everything
feelings? It's terrifying.
Yeah. Everything you've just said, I feel like 100%. I think the thing that has been really encouraging has been the critical and just like word of mouth reception to this thing. So far, all of the feedback has been really glowing. And I think everything that we've hoped this series would accomplish in terms of just doing right by the people who are in the doco and who have shared their stories, doing right by the fans of this genre, and doing right by the people who are having a crack at attempting to, make their contributions to this genre. All signs, all feedback indicates that we've done all right, that we've done really quite exceptionally well in the eyes of most people. I haven't seen anything negative. And in some cases, like we've seen some people posting, they're watching the first episode. There was a guy on Instagram that posted a picture of him like watching this thing in like a hotel room as he was about to go give like a talk at a university about like horror games or something. And he was watching this thing and posted like, watching this, now it's reminded me why I love this stuff in the first place. So like it's already doing the thing that we wanted it to do, I think, ultimately. But like, yeah, all of that worry of like, oh God, has this been worth it? Like, I think ultimately it has been, but like we live in a world where you need it, you got to pay your rent and stuff. So like that can, those kind of frustrating real world worries can kind of encroach on the magic of creativity and stuff a little bit, I think.
Always tends to do that. But that's fortunately, if you the phrase "if you build it, they will come." That's how I feel about a documentary like this.
Yeah.
A big thing. The spectrum in horror gaming is big.
Yeah.
People want
and all of
like
those.
This.
Yeah, all of those fears, or real world concerns aside, would not trade the last 9 months of my life working on this thing for anything. Like I'm immensely like proud of what me, Dan, and Richard have managed to put together here. And grateful
it's
for.
It's sort of more. It's more. It's a fear that we can't do it again. It's like we want to make more.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's this, like I said, it's like there's this fear that this might be it. That that as great as this was, I don't want it to be the swan song. I don't want it to be the last thing. I want to keep doing another one and keep getting better and better and doing more exciting, more amazing things. I want to keep growing and developing. I don't want to have to sell out.
No, exactly. I don't want to have to go back
up.
to vacuum commercials after this, like, God.
Richard said, I got 15 more episodes in the fucking tank, dude. Don't let me, I'm not done.
The same way that you talked about, it sitting down and interviewing all the various different creators throughout this process and them opening up is the same reason we love doing this exactly here. Like talking to you guys, I mean, you just did the exact same thing for us, right? Like you opened up, you told us your story, your fears and things that motivate you. And that's what we love doing here too. Like we love that aspect of it. I mean, we don't make a fucking dime from this. Let's be perfectly honest. We do this because we enjoy it. We love it. And we love to promote projects where people are passionate about what they're doing. And so that's, I mean, we appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And it's truly an honor for us. And I hope this does gangbusters for you guys. I really do, because I love watching the content that you guys make, that you put out. You can see the heart and soul that you guys pump into it, and I want you to continue to be able to do this because I want to do it. I want to watch it. All right, like selfishly, I want that, but also for your guys' well-being. I don't want it would be awesome for you guys to be able to do this without that fear, right? Because I mean, sure, it's a motivator, but at the same time, like. I'm sure you guys would find other motivators, and so we'll be screaming this everywhere, putting it as many different places as we can, because we want to see you guys succeed, and you have proven that you guys do amazing work, and the first 2 episodes are out now. The last 3 episodes come out this month, correct?
End of April, pending.
So end of April,
just final legal cuts and everything.
May
push
so
that
the
out
lawyers,
a week or so, but it's that's the date that we're aiming for, end of April.
Gotcha.
Yeah, lawyers got to got to check everything over.
Yeah,
make sure we're not gonna get sued or something. And
right.
So he just requests little changes, like you're gonna have to cut a couple of seconds here. Like a lot of the stuff is just about fair use. It's just you've gone a little bit too much here. You got to pull it back a tiny bit. You got to cut a second or two off this clip and that clip, stuff like that. And that's not that big a deal, but it's also absolutely critical because we can't put the thing out without the lawyer signing it off.
Yeah,
and so that, like, we're doing that at the moment on episode 1. We're about to do an episode 2, and then we'll see how long it takes to do the other episodes and get through that process. Hopefully we'll be done by the end of April, can put the thing out to our backers. But in the meantime, anyone who buys a copy of TerrorBytes will get episodes 1 and 2 immediately, like right after you finish your purchase. You will get an email saying, here you go.
Yeah. I backed it forever ago when we talked to you guys the first time, and that email came.
Man, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I did.
I'm buying it literally while we're doing the interviews.
Yeah, but the email came through that it was available, and must have been a busy day and completely spaced it, and I have not had the chance to sit down and watch it yet, and I am thoroughly excited to sit down and watch those first 2 episodes.
I can't wait.
And then
I really hope you guys like it. Hey, thanks so much for having us on, by the way. Like, you've been thanking us
of
for our
course.
work and stuff, but like the fact that you guys do this, and like I don't know, I love it's the same within like heavy metal and stuff, like the way that people are able to contribute to this thing that they love, even if they're not necessarily making the things. Like, just creating a platform where you can champion the art that you love is massive. So for what it's worth, like, thank you for doing your part.
We grew up
again, it's our honor. We love it.
We grew up and hung out in the hardcore scene, dude. Hardcore in the metal scene, I get it.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was in a pretty shite metalcore band for quite a while.
Yes, dude. What was the band called?
We were a band called Athena's Grace from Detroit.
That's a tough name, dude. I love that. From Detroit. Oh my god.
And you're wearing a Cancer Bats hat, dude. That's gnarly as shit.
Dude.
I saw that. I looked up like, that's Cancer Bats. That's real sweet. Brody's right though. We do this because we love. first and foremost, we love to champion things that we think, and if we think there's love put into a project, we will always reach out and go, hey, just talk to us. Like, I know I disguise a lot of seriousness in comedy on our show, even with guests. I'm always making jokes, but there is a time to be serious, right? And love to make friends. Richard has been on the show 3 times. Like, 3 times.
And I'm sure we will invite him back again.
He'll be back again. I already know he will be.
Glutton for punishment.
But we don't champion things we don't support. Like, we've had a couple things where it's like we looked into it and it's like, nah, man, that's kind of not us. Like, there's just things that we won't do, and TerrorBytes is a thing we very much so want to be a part of. We want to champion. If you guys, if this documentary has pushed anybody to wanting TerrorBytes, go to the website. It's TerrorBytes.com. Purchase yours now. I mean, dude, it's worth it. It's gonna be all through our bios. We're gonna be championing it on Twitter, X, whatever you want to fucking call it, Instagram. I'm gonna make I'm gonna have Connor or Noah make a neat little TikTok. We're gonna throw it up on TikTok, because I'm shit at TikTok. I'm so bad at it. I make a little video of my spinning big boxes, and I'm like, this will be like a bajillion. People are gonna love it. No one does. No one cares. No one cares. But yeah, just please follow us on social media, guys, to find TerrorBytes stuff. But most importantly, follow TerrorBytes on social media. Go to their social media platforms. Go to the website. Buy the doc. Follow the page. Stay tuned for updates. Is there anything any final thing you guys want to leave the audience off on in regards to TerrorBytes?
Oh man, Richard, you got anything?
And I mean, I guess just I hope everyone who watches this thing, I hope it helps you understand why you love horror, and amplifies that feeling of these games are fucking amazing. I want you to realize how broad the genre is, and how deep these games can go, and how they can teach you about like your humanity. They can provide catharsis, but also like what it takes to make them good. You know, why they're effective when they are effective, and why they suck when they're not. What's good and bad about them. I hope you get all of that, and I hope you get inspired just like we did making it.
Yeah, back to all that. I think if it reacquaints you with why you love this genre, or if you take a punt on it as someone who's more into video games or more into horror films, but not the other part of the Venn diagram, hopefully this invites you into that spot in the middle. And I hope it inspires people to like have a crack at making something. I think that's just having a go at creating something, whether it be a podcast even, or fucking anything, like contributing to the thing you love is so important. It shores everybody up to like that it's okay to have a go, and that it's okay to potentially I don't know, fail sounds too like too damning a word, but it's okay if you're not Stephen King, your first attempt at writing a horror story or whatever. Like,
you just got to blow yourself
just
up,
do
and
the
then
thing.
and then
Put
and then
yourself
hit
back
the key
together.
that'll put you back together again. Yeah.
Exactly. Throw yourself into a giant mechanical fan and then put yourself back together.
Even if you could do it, knowing my luck, I would do that, and I would not reanimate. I'd be the one to be like, oh,
it'd be a bit wrong.
I'm
Like
up
you'd have
now,
a hand
this
coming out of
sucks.
your head.
Yeah, it's just like a foot on top. I'd be like, yeah, go figure. Fuck me, right? Thank you both so much for
Pining
hopping
for
on
the days of the freak show.
Oh, dude, I already am a freak show. I ain't got no time to have a foot on top of my head, dude. No time. But thank you guys seriously for hopping on again. We can't wait to watch this. Brody, you gotta put 2 episodes on after we're done editing. I need to watch this now. I didn't know you already had it.
I honestly, until I started doing research like a couple days ago just to make sure I was up to snuff on everything, I was like, oh shit, those first 2 episodes are out, and I completely missed that email. So
God damn it.
That's the real takeaway here. Check your inboxes.
Check your emails.
Check your spam filter.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Check the junk
Check your
folder.
emails, especially when, when it's something you tried to back. That's a cool project. It's like, God damn it.
Oh man. Thank you guys.
Really hope you guys like it, man.
I'm excited.
Please let us know if you did.
Oh,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be hearing from us, I'm sure.
I think I bothered Richard and David a lot after watching FPS Doc. Like, yeah, it was really good. Here's my full. David asked for a blurb. He asked for a blurb, and I wrote like this thing, and he was like, "I'm only gonna take a little here and there, Nick." And I was like, I look like an asshole. Also, we got Richard to swear on this episode. Richard said the F-bomb. I've never. It's been taken 3 episodes to have of him being on here.
Yes,
we did it,
dude.
He's so happy with himself. Thank you guys for hopping on. Everybody, please go check out TerrorBytes. Go buy it. Links will be below. YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, wherever we'll be talking about this. Check out the episode on YouTube tomorrow at noon on YouTube. That was stupid. All right, guys, I'm losing it. Take it easy. See you guys next week. Goodbye.